Birds are noisy this morning. All right, so we have a little project this morning. We're gonna be planting our lilies. We actually got some of these lilies in a bit earlier than I would have liked because it was still chilly out and probably not the best time to actually plant them. But I'm gonna plant some of them in the pollinator garden, and really this garden is already pretty full. I mean, if you saw it in September, that's when it's at its pinnacle. Right now, it's pretty low growing. The grasses, I had cut them back in the early spring and they're just starting to come up. And the grasses are quite tall, 4 or 5 feet. And that's where I think I'm gonna plant these pink giant tiger lilies. So this is Lilium Asiatic pink giant. And these are kind of like the lilies that I grew up with. Like my mother had tiger lilies and the orange variety. So these are kind of a really nice salmony pink color. And they have these beautiful recurved petals with maybe this like a maroon speckling, and it kind of softly transitions to white in the center. So they're really beautiful and they're very hardy. So if I could open these up, I'll show you what the bulbs look like. So you could see actually that this is already starting to come up. They weren't like that when I got them, but that's fine. These are totally ready for planting. Like I said, these are pretty hardy, usually zones 3 through 8. And you could cut off the flower heads after they're spent, and that will put energy back into the bulbs. And these are the little storage organs. This is where all the good carbohydrates and sugars get stored. And it's pretty amazing when these plants grow, because some of them could get 4, 5, 6 feet tall. These will top out at around 4 feet. So I don't have any flower shapes like this in the pollinator garden. And even though these are unscented flowers, they will attract pollinators regardless. So we get 3 to a pack here. I didn't mention, but these will bloom in the summer months. So I got to get these planted because it's April right now when I'm planting them. And as I'd mentioned, it was cold up until maybe like last week. But now it feels like it's already summer. So I'm going to just bring these all out and I'm going to inspect every single one and just make sure that they all look healthy. So far, so good. Now these are pretty large bulbs, and if you've seen me planting some bulbs here before, I usually get quite a lot of small bulbs. And so I'm usually only putting them 1, 2, 3 inches underneath the ground. Well, these are a bit more sizable, so you're gonna wanna bury these about 6 inches is what is recommended. And they also could get fairly robust, and they will naturalize, they will spread. So it's recommended to be about 12 inches apart. And you could plant these in a container as well. And they tend to be very nice cut flowers. You'll get maybe 12 to 20 flowers on a stem. All right, so I'm going to plant them around this area. So I see I have some holes in here. They could be our chipmunk, could be something else. I covered up a hole over here and it seems like he was fine with that, and maybe put some others. But yeah, I'm gonna put this in with the grass. This grass does get really full, but I think this is a perfect opportunity for me to plant these. And I'm gonna use some bulb-tone. It's advisable to give them some fertilizer in the spring. And lilies are pretty forgiving, they are very hardy plants, especially I'm in zone 5, 6. I didn't say that, but I am in zones 5 or 6, so these are gonna be hardy. But you give them a little fertilizer in the spring, and if it starts to get really hot, they like their roots protected. So they want cool roots, and they want to be in relatively full sun. That's when you're gonna get the best blooms. You could get a little partial shade like in the afternoon, they'll like that. And I think this is gonna be a perfect location for them because we are going to be getting eastern and southern light, but then this tree will actually also cast shade in the afternoon, so will a house. and they'll get some of the afternoon shade. So I think that this is actually going to be a perfect area for them. Now I have some other plants planted through here. You can see this is my Vernonia. So I'm just going to kind of plant them in between. And again, I'm going to go six inches down. Here's another little bulb that probably I just dug up, but this one doesn't look like, it looks like it was eaten, so half eaten. So somebody ate that. Probably a little tulip bulb. And I should mention they do not like to be sitting in water. You don't want these. They're fine in like a friable, slightly friable clay soil, but you should be planting them up more on the top of a hill if you can, so they have better drainage. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this bulb-tone, perfect for bulbs and corms and tubers and such. And I'm going to put that up, pointy side up, obviously. And you might say, oh, you're burying the top of it. It will find its way up out of the soil. It's pretty amazing. So just going to do that. And I am just going to add a little bit of mulch to the top already, because I will say it felt like I was in the high 80s yesterday. It really felt like summer, and it's only the early spring. So we're going to just cover that up and make sure that the soil doesn't dry out. All right, well, I'm not going to put it in this hole because I'm going to risk it being munched on. So the chipmunk or whomever this hole is going to be sad that I covered it up. But I see I think I had some tulips planted in here because some of them have not made it. Others are coming up for sure, but tulips are tasty for lots of little beasts. Okay. You win some and you lose some. All right, little bulb tone. Pointy side up, root side down. There you go. That's 9 of them planted. I wanted to plant them in groups, but you could still actually plant far apart. I planted them roughly about 9 to 12 inches, because you'll be surprised in the summer months, June, July, they'll start to pop up and they get really beefy. They're fairly robust. You could get some smaller versions as well, which I do have. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to actually plant them in here, but we're going to go down to the meadow house and we're going to add some lilies to that garden as well. So I guess we'll get down there. Let's see where we'd like to put some lilies here. So we put in this garden last year, I guess. This was a huge undertaking because this was a real pile of weeds. There were 3 barberry plants here that we ended up taking out because they have a tendency to be invasive around here, and we saw them spreading and pushing into the forest. And this gets great light. I mean, this is obviously early morning right now. You see the sun rising, but it does get shaded in the afternoon. So I'd like to put some lilies in here. It's obviously planted up on a berm. So this is a good place to actually put some plants that don't want to be sitting in wetness. And you know, if you want plants that want a little bit more wetness, typically you could plant them like right lower on the berm and not so high up. All of these like latecomers, Canada geese are coming in. Our pond's taken, unfortunately. Those aren't ours. All right, so I have these lilies. I have never planted these before, but they are absolutely gorgeous. Put a photo up. These are Lilium Eyeliner, and they're creamy white. They have slightly recurved petals, and they have this purple black eyeliner, literally, around their petals. Very striking. Almost looks, it just looks like it's outlined like a cartoon in a way. But they're very elegant. You could see closely on these bulbs, just the little scales that they have there. You can see that more clearly on these than you did on the pink giant. And I have a lot of these. These are best, I didn't know if I mentioned this, but these are best when they're planted in a group. They're very stunning. These get to be 3 to 4 feet tall. They typically don't need any kind of staking either. And just like the pink giants, it's important to plant them deeply, 6, you could even go 8 inches. And just give them some mulch. You don't necessarily need to mulch them in the spring if you're in a cooler climate, but if you're having a hot spring or a drought or whatnot, then you may actually want to mulch them even sooner. So I'm gonna put some mulch over these. And I have these tall grasses here, and I think I might actually plant them right up on top of the hill, and I think they'll look really nice. This with the birch, I was about to start another sentence, but the birch is gonna get like nice white creamy bark and beautiful catkins, and I think that this will look really stunning in the June and July months when they're actually in bloom. So all these look good and healthy, which is great. Nice and firm. Obviously, if anything looks shriveled or squishy or anything like that, you don't want to plant those. So let's go. I have way more that I'm going to plant here. You could also add a little compost layer to the top as well. That's totally fine. It'll be interesting because this tree gives quite a bit of shade, throws quite a bit of shade. So it'll be interesting to see whether what bulbs actually do the best, because they'll get like slightly different sun. And if some of them are shaded out, sometimes they don't get as nice of color. But since these are creamy white, I think this should be fine. This area has already quite a bit of mulch, so I'm not as worried about it. Let's go deep in here. Now I put cardboard, and that's what I'm hitting kind of under here. I put cardboard on top. So the grass didn't come through, and I really heavily mulched this area, a bit more than I probably would have normally mulched it. And that's partially because I just didn't have time to really, once I did this garden, I had so much other things to do, and I have a tendency to kind of like mulch things very heavily so I could like forget about it for a year. And now I'm back. Now spring's here and we've hit the ground running, and we have lots of things to plant. But the great thing about these is that you plant them in the spring, like we are now, and you'll get them in the summertime, and they are perennial. They'll keep on coming back. So you plant them once and you're good to go. Most of the bulbs that I planted in the lawn, which are now coming up, I had planted in the fall. So you kind of have to wait fall, winter, and then you get them in the spring. This is basically spring to summer, so you get them a bit more rapid pace. I have some verbena planted here, so this is our native verbena, Verbena canadensis, but I think it's a type of cultivar, and those will come up mostly, I think, in the late summer, early fall. So we'll have blooms during all time in this garden. And oftentimes with these gardens, I don't plant them all up at once. I kind of take inventory of what they look like and what we have, and then I start to plant in between. My goal is to not see much of this mulch. And there's a lot of like mulch here, as you could see. And, you know, the way that I kind of get around that is like by planting some like ground covers and whatnot. And we don't have that many ground covers. We have lots of grasses that are going to billow out. So that's going to act a little bit like a ground cover. But we're not there yet, and there's lots of ground to fill. And I don't like to see a lot of mulch, largely because you have to weed it. And with all the gardens that we have, I'd rather plant heavy and then not have to deal with so many weeds. Like this dandelion that's not supposed to be there. I don't mind dandelions in lawns, but dandelions in gardens, not so much. So I'd like to actually water these in. It's been very dry. This is very nice and moist actually, though, the soil here, very friable. And I think it's because how much mulch I had put on top of this. It's very, very good. Also, it doesn't get hit that southern light. You know, this is more eastern facing, so that really helps too. But we haven't hooked a hose up here down yet, but we are going to do that. We have a little hose reel over on the meadow house. We have a hose for it, so why not? We're gonna do that. We have some rain in the forecast tomorrow, which is really good. I like to plant right before a good rain. You don't want these like soaked, but if you have really good drainage in your soil, and then it should be perfectly fine. All right, have the last three. I want to give you another close-up on that bulb. You could see they're already shooting out. When I got these a few weeks back, probably 3 or 4 weeks back, I got it really early in March. They didn't have any of these sprouts coming up. So if you get them early and you can't plant them right away, what I would advise is, you know, put them kind of like in a cooler garage or, you know, a basement or anything along those lines. And I just basically put them in our, you know, kind of unheated chicken coop, which is not really a chicken coop quite yet. It's just like a storage closet right now. But that's where I kept them, and they should keep for quite some time, as you can see. One of the things I forgot to mention about these lilies is that they are a hybrid lily. So these aren't species lilies, but this one is a hybrid between the Asiatic lilies and also the Easter lilies. And I also have the Easter lilies here, longiflorum, Lilium longiflorum. And some of these hybrids are really spectacular. So this one, this eyeliner lily, was hybridized in Holland, and I think it's one of the prettier lilies. And I hadn't had lilies in this garden yet, so it's nice to have them. And it's also nice to have some June, July blooms, because a lot of the gardens that I have planted, I feel like they kind of peak in August, September, so kind of during that late summer, fall period. So it's nice to have some of these guys blooming kind of like in early to mid-June, July. All right, so we just got this hose on. Sandra put it on, and we have this great hose reel. We've been using it and just put it on the side of the common house as well. This hose has a little hole in it, but that's fine for now. We'll have to switch it out. But now I have the pleasure of being able to water these in, which I didn't have before. We had no water here. You'll probably see like some of them are already putting out some buds. We just had such great weather. And this area doesn't get too dry, luckily, but I am still gonna water them in. I definitely have to come down here and weed though. We'll get some more weeds for our compost. But yeah, June, July, we'll probably see some of these plants come up, and we'll have to give you some updates on the garden.
If you're learning from and enjoying the videos that we produce here at Flock, consider liking, subscribing, hitting the notifications button, and even tipping. Your support and viewership does really make a difference. We're reinvesting 10% of our Google AdSense proceeds back into community projects, which is matched by our partners over at Espoma Organic. Thank you again for your support, and we'll see you in the next video.